2024 has been an abysmal year for Ubisoft. Skull and Bones was a quadruple A failure. X-Defiant was not the COD killer they expected it to be. They had to delay Assassin's Creed Shadows, probably hoping that people would forget about some of the controversy, but that's not going to happen. And Star Wars Outlaws was a massive fail for them. It did not get good scores. It apparently underperformed sales-wise, and now we're finding out they're replacing the creative director, and it appears they're already planning on spinning down development for this title. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I always think situations like this are hilarious, because if the developers were really listening to us customers, they would be able to not only sell more copies of their game, but in the long run, it would be a more successful situation for them. Because right now we're seeing this running trend in the video game industry where companies are constantly trying to sell you battle passes, right? And expansion passes. They want to make sure that not only are you buying the base game, but you're buying extra content on top of that, just trying to swipe your credit card. But they back themselves into a corner, because when nobody is playing your game, you have to continue to deliver that content. You have to continue development. It's like with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. They sold battle passes. They told you were going to get these characters. And so they could not just drop development, and it was all for a few extra bucks at release. And now they're struggling because these games are not the successes they thought they were going to be. And now we're seeing Ubisoft seemingly already giving up on Star Wars Outlaws. So Ubisoft has revealed that it replaced Julian Garrity as its creative director for Outlaws in the wake of admitting that it underperformed sales expectations. And of course, if you were to listen to Yves Guillemot, he would say that it's our fault. Just a few weeks ago, he did an interview and said that he wasn't really that shocked that it underperformed sales expectations, but it all happened because of gamers, because our expectations are too high. And of course, our expectations are high when you're constantly trying to sell us products and there are new games coming out every single day to week, and you want us to pay $70 freaking dollars for them. Like, yes, we are not going to be pushed around anymore. We are not going to blindly support your titles, especially a company like Ubisoft, who over the past couple of years most certainly has not delivered on their promises. And now in the game's first dev update, which is hilarious because they've only released one, it's not like we are 6 months past release, but Ubisoft shared that Drew Reckner is now the game's creative director, and that the company has been listening to, gathering, and actioning players' feedback, and we see there are key areas where we can elevate the game's experience to better meet your expectations. Now, of course, I live stream most of the games that I talk about on this channel, and I was live streaming Star Wars Outlaws, but I reached a game-breaking bug where I could not progress the main story. That is how broken this was right around release, and obviously I hope that they do put time and effort into patches and they fix things up, but they would basically have to scrap this game to make it the title that people would have wanted out of a Star Wars smuggling experience. It's based upon stealth gameplay. The stealth is really bad. Enemies can see you and shoot you through walls half the time. You have the character models, which are just god-awful. A lot of the dialogue is bad. Like, they would just have to scrap it at this point. And I obviously want them to continue to put effort into it, just because there are so many people who did swipe their credit cards on it. But on the flip side, I can't say I'm particularly shocked it underperformed, and that they're already like figuring out how to either save money by getting rid of the people who would want more money, or ultimately just people who are going to push it along until they've delivered on the bare minimum. So, he has actually been with Ubisoft's Massive Entertainment for nearly 11 years, so he does have a pretty decent history, and has been a creative director at the company since January 2024, and he was previously the associate game director on Avatar's Frontiers of Pandora, which was not a good game. That game also was buggy and broken visually. it was very pretty. I thought it had a lot of interesting game mechanics, like the flying system, for example, but it just was all around not a good game either. So, right now, this guy's going to have two flops under his belt. And he echoed the comments from Ubisoft in a message addressed to gamers, saying, I also want to take the time to say that we hear not only your positive feedback, but your constructive feedback as well. Thank you for sharing with us and helping us make the game even better. And I actually sit here on this channel a lot and say that developers and also journos need to be more respectful to gamers. They need to say things exactly like this. I actually think that this is a really great statement. He continued on with saying the first key area of improvement to the game is combat, where we see a real opportunity to add more depth and excitement to the experience, further rewarding your tactics and precision. Our second key area is stealth, which is not only about improving the readability and consistency of enemy detection, but also providing choice in how you want to approach each encounter. I think that this is honestly a really solid statement. He probably should have been the creative director in the first place. It sounds like he actually wants to get things done. And he's also not saying that we're toxic ists and phobes for criticizing this game. He's saying he's listening to the positive feedback, but also the constructive feedback. And that's why people like me have channels, right? I have this channel to play video games, to talk about video games, because I want video games to be amazing again. I want the industry to thrive. I want every title to release and be a massive win for gamers. So maybe he will turn things around. But on the flip side, I do think it's going to take a lot of work and effort. And I just don't necessarily know if hiring, a new creative director, which is basically just putting on a new coat of paint, is going to save this game. But as long as he can help deliver the content that was previously promised to people, that is what means a lot to me and, of course, a lot of you. We, of course, know that this comes in the wake of Ubisoft admitting that Star Wars Outlaws underperformed sales expectations despite achieving solid reviews in its first half 2024-25 earnings figures report. I think that's hilarious how they only use the critic scores to reflect how positively things have been going, right? They can say on one hand it's underperformed sales expectations, but it's getting, solid reviews, which is why so many people believe that companies pay reviewers for these solid scores so that they can use them if worse comes to worse and the game fails. Like, at least it's another line of defense. And I can't say I'm particularly shocked to hear that this game was a fail, given the fact that I played it and it had a lot of problems. And when you look at other Star Wars titles that have released, even only over the past couple of years, like Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, I really expected better, right? They had serious competition, and I was hoping that they would at least be able to meet those games in terms of the level of quality, whether it's writing or it's gameplay or how the game ran technically. But unfortunately, they just were not able to here. So while I think that this is actually a very good statement from him, I feel like this is more of a patch situation where they have, the water pouring out of the tank and they're just shoving some duct tape over it, hoping that it's going to stay, hoping that people are going to give them another chance. But I do not think that's going to happen. So we'll have to keep an eye on this. But Star Wars Outlaws has, of course, underperformed sales expectations, as we've known. And it seems that Ubisoft is already getting ready to wind down this game. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.